Okay. Now, for the third part, we have computer networks. So, once we have understood the concept of data communications and how they are, or how or what is the role they play in our robotic systems, we can now understand further the concept of computer networks. Okay, so especially if we have more robots involved and multiple computers that interact with how our robots perform. Like we have a user interface, we have a database server, we have an external user, an external system that the robot must collaborate with. So they must be configured in a way they form a computer network. Okay, we have devices like routers and switches, and we make use of different protocols involved and other technologies that allow our data to communicate or to be transmitted from one device to another. Okay, one of such technologies is the Ethernet. Okay, this is a widely developed local area network technology or LAN, standardized in IEEE 802.3. And its connector is the network interface card or the NIC equipped with the 48-bit MAC address, which helps other Ethernet devices to identify and communicate with remote devices in Ethernet. So in computer networks, we can identify the actual devices through their MAC address or the physical address. Okay, and that MAC address is determined by the NIC that is built in within it, within the device. Okay, so for example, when we have a device that has a um, a built-in Wi-Fi module, then we can say that it has a built-in NIC as well. Okay, where that NIC determines the MAC address of it. Okay, so there are no different devices that have the same MAC address. Each device has its own MAC address, and that serves its unique identifier among the other computer devices that can be integrated into a computer network. Okay. So for another example, Raspberry Pi. If we have a Raspberry Pi, that has a built-in Wi-Fi. Aside from the built-in Wi-Fi, it also has a built-in what do we call that? Built-in Ethernet connector. Okay, Ethernet port, right? So the Wi-Fi module and that Ethernet port share the same NIC. Um, or maybe they have their respective NICs that is being used by the Raspberry Pi when communicating via the computer network. Okay, so to understand further what Ethernet actually looks like, so just imagine we have two end devices. Okay, we have robot A and robot B. If you want them to be, especially if they are located in a separate area. Okay, let's say this robot is located in site A while the other robot is located in site B, then they can communicate via computer network. And the most or one of the most common options for them to communicate to connect to the computer network is via Ethernet cables. Okay, if the other option is wireless using Wi-Fi. Okay, for wired connections, we have UTP and STP cables. Um, just mind their speed, the speed and the distance that they can offer. Okay, and of course, we have different plugs and jacks according to our intended purpose. Okay, because our intended purpose has a corresponding bandwidth and distance requirements. Okay, so whatever our purpose, we have a corresponding Ethernet cable type, and that comes with a plug or and an RJ45 jack. Okay, so we use them to connect our end devices to the what we call the Ethernet switch. So it's like a central hub that identifies all the MAC address or all the devices connected to it through their MAC address. So for each port, it will assign, okay, this port is assigned to this MAC address. Okay. It establishes a table of the ports taken by the respective MAC addresses. So that will serve as the basis of identifying which one is sending, which one is receiving, and so on. Okay, so Ethernet switch. Usually before we go through the router, we connect via switch, especially if we have a lot of devices. But sometimes we go directly to the router. Okay, so sometimes we go through the router, especially if the router can accommodate a lot of devices. Okay. The switch can serve as an extension. If we need more ports than the router can handle, then that's the time we use a switch. Or especially if the device is far enough from the router. So the switch can serve as the bridge towards that. Okay. So Ethernet is also a protocol within the second and even the third layer, normally in the second layer. Okay. And when we are designing our robotic systems, we have to be aware also of the type of network that we are that the robot must be part of. Okay. So if it is just within the same room, then that's a PAN or personal area network. And we have technologies like Bluetooth that we can use for wireless. And we have UART, I2C, and even USB as wired protocols that we can choose from. Okay, just take note they usually have low speed and they can only run for a very short distance. Okay. In multi-room situations or in within networks within a building or even a compound, we can have a LAN or a local area network. And you have the details here. But if you expand it further, we have the entire city or metropolitan area to be connected within the same network, then we call that a MAN. So especially this is in the case of self-driving cars, okay, or robotic cars. The robotic cars can communicate with one another or with their server through the MAN, wireless MAN, and especially using 5G and other similar wireless technologies. Okay. And if you go farther, if you have multiple cities or even multiple provinces or even worldwide, multiple nations, um, you connect them all together, then we can have a WAN or a wide area network. And the most common example of that is the internet. Okay. So if you go through the internet, then what the next thing that we need to know is the concept of IP addressing. Okay. So especially if our robots have IoT components or IoT features, like they allow remote control or remote monitoring, then the robots must be identified with an IP address once it gets connected to a computer network or once it becomes part of a computer network. So apart from the MAC addresses that only the MAC, or I mean the Ethernet switches can see, the robots or other digital devices that we connect to the network are also tagged or identified with an IP address. Okay, so we have different types of IP address. First, we have the network address, which, of course, uniquely identifies a network. And that's the first address of a class. I think I cannot explain this everything. It will take long before I can finish these things. I don't want the video to be too long. Just remember that we need to assign an IP address to our robot, and we cannot use the network address. That IP address could not be the same with the network address. Okay, it must not be the same with the broadcast address as well and the loopback addresses because they have their intended purposes. So we can only choose one of the addresses for the host. Okay, the addresses that uniquely identify a host or a node, or okay, we refer a computer or any IP-based device like our robots as a node. Okay, and the options are somewhere in between the network address and the broadcast address. Okay, so we have examples here. We don't have example of a network. Right. So to determine what host address we can assign to our robot, we have to determine the type of or the class of network that we are having first. Okay. So first, is it a class A, class B, or class C? So it depends. Normally, for prototyping and for small scale applications, we have the class C. Okay. For higher enterprises, large scale applications, they have class A and class B networks. Okay, so class C is the most common that you can find in simple applications. Okay, so class C, we have these details. I'll go straight to this one. Okay, we have public and private IP addresses. So private within the network, okay? Public outside the network, okay? Meaning at the internet level. So within the network, our choices can be 192.168.0.0 up to 192.168.255.255. By the way, this includes the network and the broadcast. The .0.0 cannot be used because that's the network address, so we have to skip that. And that 255.255 is for the broadcast address, and we cannot use that as well. Okay, so everything in between can be used. Okay, as you can see, the only thing that differs are the last two digits. Okay, just don't use .0.0 or .255 and .255. So everything, any number from 0 to 255 can be used here for the last two octets. So we call this as octets. This is one octet, one octet, one octet, and one octet. Okay, each octet corresponds to 8 bits, right? And that's a long story. Okay, you can observe this summary of Internet Protocol addressing. By the way, this is specifically IPv4 or Internet Protocol version 4 type of addressing. Okay, so with knowledge on IP addressing, we can now better understand how the internet works. Um, Okay, let's go through this. So, sorry for the quite blur image that I got. Okay, first, we type normally when we want to access something, we access the domain name. So, for example, if we want to access our robot control interface or user interface, we type in our domain name for that, okay, or the URL for that. Okay. But of course, if you want a domain name, you have to register that. Okay. Usually what we have is the domain name provided by the platform that we use. Okay. So we type that, and then what the network will do is they will determine the corresponding IP address for that domain name. Okay, like google.com, it has a corresponding IP address. So it will be converted. You type in the domain name, what the server, the domain, the DNS will do is um, forward the corresponding IP address. Okay, and forward to the ISP. So the modem sends the request to the user's ISP who checks their name servers to find out where to send the request. Some users override their ISP's name servers by using something like OpenDNS. Okay, and then once the ISP has found the server that we want to communicate to, the request is then routed to another machine that is the name server, which identifies if the request is related to email, or is it looking for a website or a specific web page, web app. Okay, if it's a website, it's routed to a data center, like the data center for our platforms like Firebase and Blink. Okay. After that, number six, okay, the data center then routes the packets of information to the destination server, which hosts the device, like this one. If this is the platform that we need for, or the platform that we communicate to, or we send data to, then this the server for this platform will receive that and then perform the corresponding action, like displaying it in our user interface or vice versa. So the host server that executes the request, the user will see the interface, and then they will see the sensor data being captured. Okay, and so and okay, if we have a web page, then all those information will be rendered within the web page. Okay, and vice versa. So when the user sends data to the robot, so the process is basically much the same. Okay. Now, when we communicate via the internet, remember that we go through our router, which includes the NAT feature or NAT function. NAT is I forgot. Sorry. Network address translator, right? So this one translates our um private IP address into public and vice versa. Okay? So within our network, we use the private IP address, and we use the public IP address. Okay? So, for example, if our private IP address is 10.0.0.1, then uh, once our once we communicate outside, the IP address will now become 150.150.0.1. Okay? So, the one that does that is the NAT, which is a built-in feature of our routers, right? And also, when we are designing our robots, especially when we have a remote user interface, or if our robot is meant to communicate with other systems remotely, other robots in another location, then we have to decide, especially if we have an app, okay? We have to decide what should be our network architecture before we choose the different components that we should include in our network components, or our computer network, or the network aspect of our system. We can choose to have either intranet, internet, or extranet. Okay. First we have the intranet, especially if you want to have exclusive access only on the resources. Okay. If you want robot A to communicate with robot B and robot C and everything else without going to the internet or any public links. Okay. So this is usually possible when we have on-premise servers, and the devices are just located within a nearby area. Okay? There's no large distance in between the devices, okay, within our network. Okay? But if you want, usually, especially when we have IoT, then automatically, as the name implies, Internet of Things. So these things must communicate with the other things outside through the internet. Okay? Especially with the use of cloud technology. If some of the data processing of our robots require large volume of data, especially when using AI, then we make use of cloud technology to handle such complex functions. And of course, if you need cloud, then you have to be connected to the internet. And especially if you have IoT interfaces for remote users or remote controllers, then you must go through the internet as well. Okay, so if that's your purpose, then you just make sure the links are secure. Okay, you have to give emphasis on the security concerns regarding your network. Okay, now if you want the best of both worlds, but you don't want to go via the internet. For example, you don't want to go through the internet, but you want your local devices, your robots here and the servers within your premises to communicate with the outside world, okay, like those from the other countries or from other um far areas, then what we can choose is the extranet. Okay? Extranet, meaning we build our own links separate from the internet. So we connect our local network to the outside world, okay, using our own links and not using the internet. Okay, so this can be costly, especially if the distance involved is intercontinental or overseas, at least, right? So once you have chosen one of these, internet, or extranet, another thing regarding the architecture is whether you choose peer-to-peer or client-server model. Peer-to-peer, basically, this is for nearby devices, for on-premise, for internet, especially for internet or local networks only. Okay, peer-to-peer. But if you, it's possible also to have peer-to-peer, meaning peer-to-peer is anyone can communicate with anyone. Anyone can send data with anyone. Anyone can control anyone. So that's peer-to-peer within the robotics context. While client server is somewhat like we have a master and then the rest are slaves. Okay? The client is the one that the others are serving for. Okay? So somewhat reverse. Okay? So we have this server. Okay, although it's called server, it's actually the one being served because what it actually serves is the result. Okay, so for example, we have the field devices or different robots store data to our server. Okay, or if we want to transmit that data to the internet via IoT, then it must go through a server. Okay. So we have a server in our case, in our vicinity, and then a server on the other party. Okay, and then the two servers communicate. Okay, so regardless of the purpose of your client server network, another thing that we must consider is um, okay, how do our client devices handle presentation logic and handle uh, application logic. Okay, so we designed the app in that way. Plus the server part, we design it to how it according to how it handles data access logic or data storage. Okay. So these are some of the many considerations when it comes to networks. That's why when we have our robots meant to be communicating with the outside world or with um, other devices within a network, then we have to make sure they're using the same protocols. They are the communication media suit well with the purpose of our communication and so on. Okay, so we consider all these things, um, especially right now we are in the Industry 4.0 where our robots are just part of a bigger picture. Okay, so you'll understand that further once we discuss our next module. But in the meantime, let's stop at this part and just continue this one in the next video.